When I participated in the championship race final, my fiancée, acting as my navigator, intentionally gave me the wrong turn instruction, causing me to lose the champion title. She then called off our engagement on the spot and left with Mark Davis, the champion. 7 years later, I was preparing to break Mark Davis' record, when, during training, my brakes failed, and I crashed down a cliff. At the hospital, I overheard her talking to Mark Davis' wife, which is when I learned she had cut my brakes for Mark Davis, causing my lower leg amputation and leaving me disabled. While I was hospitalized, they held me down and forced me to kneel and apologize, or humiliating apology, to Mark Davis. They even stepped on the wound on the back of my hand with high heels to humiliate me. After I left, having lost all hope, she discovered Mark Davis had deceived her, so she retaliated against him, causing him to have a racing accident. In the end, she took her own life while holding Mark Davis' wife, Olivia Stone, hostage, and they both died. Jake Miller didn't have much going for him, did he? What do you have to complain about? If he wasn't Mark Davis' rival, he was tolerable outside of racing. Olivia Stone's cold voice drifted in from outside the hospital room, and for a moment, I felt disoriented. Amidst a splitting headache, it felt like a hallucination. Is that so? If you had been married to a man you didn't love for 7 years, wouldn't you feel wronged? Sarah Thompson snapped back, and Olivia Stone seemed to fall silent for a second before replying with a hint of triumph in her voice. That's why I married Mark Davis. I closed my eyes, and my heart sank. How could Sarah Thompson say something like that? How could she possibly feel wronged during these 7 years? Simply because she didn't love me, her life was filled with immense grievance. Sarah Thompson's next sentence was filled with resentment. Without me, would you have gotten married so smoothly? I married Jake Miller back then precisely because I sensed he was going to seek revenge on Mark Davis, so I sacrificed myself. She said she couldn't stand anything happening to Mark Davis, and that it would be better to get involved personally, ease the conflict, and prevent me from going too far. I let out a bitter laugh, and a dull, throbbing pain spread through my chest. Sarah Thompson didn't realize I was awake and continued speaking, saying that my expression back then indeed looked like I was about to burn everything down, and that being with me all those years had utterly disgusted her. As for sabotaging the brakes this time, don't you understand? I couldn't let Jake Miller break Mark Davis' honor. After she spoke, not only was I stunned, but Olivia Stone also took a sharp intake of breath. You really are. All right. You should leave quickly. But I also want to tell you, even though I married Jake Miller, I'm still not giving up on Mark Davis. Sarah Thompson urged Olivia Stone to leave, her last words filled with reluctance. My heart, however, shattered into pieces. After 7 years of marriage, this was the outcome. What I had wholeheartedly believed was salvation, turned out to be a conspiracy. Jake Miller. You're awake. When did you wake up? Are you still uncomfortable anywhere? After Olivia Stone left, Sarah Thompson pushed the door open, and met my gaze directly, her face immediately showing an unnatural, feigned concern. I pushed away her hand as she reached to touch my forehead, my voice cold. I don't understand. Why something always goes wrong every time I compete with Mark Davis? Maybe it's just a coincidence. Who can really say how fate works? Sarah Thompson wasn't annoyed by my push, she just responded hesitantly. That's too much of a coincidence. I scoffed, my gaze fixed on the dark night outside the window, as if my own dreams had vanished with the setting sun. Maybe Mark Davis has a lot of fans, and they can't stand their idol's record being broken. Your brakes must have had a problem. The race organizers are investigating now. Sarah Thompson, seeing my mood was truly low, struggled to find a few words of comfort. After a long pause, I closed my eyes, and a subtle scoff formed in my mind. Sarah Thompson, what about you? Do you consider him your idol too? Sarah Thompson hesitated for a long time, unable to deny it. She finally just threw caution to the wind, frowning at me. Jake Miller, what do you mean? Are you suspecting me? I'm your wife. I was just asking casually. Why are you getting so agitated? My gaze remained calm as I watched her, like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. Sarah Thompson's face darkened, and she finally let out a cold snort after a long moment. You're not good enough, and you're here suspecting everyone. Is it so hard to admit you're incapable? Don't always try seeking attention by using Mark Davis, it's embarrassing. Watching her get more and more agitated, her face subtly twisted into a grimace. I finally believed that everything I'd overheard earlier was true. Sarah Thompson had never loved me. These 7 years were utterly meaningless. I fell silent, but Sarah Thompson wasn't satisfied. She stood up directly, looking down at me. Jake Miller, I want you to promise you won't do these self-defeating actions again. As for the rest, aren't you just deliberately hurting our marriage by asking such obvious questions? Mark Davis is already the world champion now. The matter is settled, so stop making a fuss. Stop making a fuss. Why shouldn't I? I would have been the new world champion right after that turn. As for marriage. Sarah Thompson, are you sure we even have that so-called affection anymore? I clenched my fists and roared, I'm telling you. Becoming the world champion is my goal. If not now, then next time. If not next time, then the time after that. If not this 7 years, then the next 7 years. Mark Davis can't possibly win every time using such underhanded tactics, can he? You. Sarah Thompson was caught off guard by my resolve. The next second, she crossed her arms and let out a soft chuckle. All right, I was going to keep up the act a little longer, Jake Miller, but since you still want to be the world champion, then go ahead and try. I widened my eyes slightly. Her laugh sent shivers down my spine. It was then that I realized this hospital wasn't the major public hospital I usually went to. The decor alone was much more luxurious. It was clearly an upscale private hospital I hadn't known about. What are you going to do? Before I could ask anything else, Sarah Thompson clapped her hands. A masked doctor from outside entered, his shrewd eyes narrowing slightly. Miss Sarah, how may I help you? She took the patient's examination report from the doctor's phone and began flipping through it. She then paused, looking at my leg in a cast for a moment, and spoke concisely. Renowned racing driver Jake Miller crashed down a cliff, injuring his leg and leaving him disabled. The hospital did everything it could but couldn't save his leg. Understand? I was completely stunned, looking at her in disbelief. This isn't exactly proper. The private doctor was hesitant at first, but finally agreed when Sarah Thompson offered an additional $3 million and added threats and inducements. Seeing how they acted, I knew they weren't joking. Cold sweat immediately broke out on my forehead. I instantly wanted to reach for the phone on the nightstand to call the police. But the next moment, Sarah Thompson snatched my phone away. 7 years of understanding. With just a look from me, she knew what I was going to do. So she also knew how to completely destroy me. Jake Miller, give up. You can't escape. Sarah Thompson looked at me, with a strange pity in her eyes. I roared, are you crazy? I'm your husband. Even though I was covered in injuries, I started struggling violently. But now, I couldn't even lift my leg in a cast from the sling it hung in above the bed. Sarah Thompson remained silent. A few nurses appeared in the room, and reached out to restrain me as I continued to struggle. Let me go. Do you know this is illegal? I struggled, refused, and cursed, but I only hurt myself more. It wasn't until the restraint straps were tied around my body that a creeping, intense fear started from my spine, forcing me to give in. Sarah Thompson. I was wrong. It was my fault. I won't appear before any of you anymore, okay? Let me go, you'll never see me again. Sarah Thompson crossed her arms and watched my panicked expression. After a long moment, she shook her head. Jake Miller, I don't believe you. You've clung to the same thing for 7 years, you won't give it up in an instant. I'm sorry. At her insistence, the doctor and nurse subdued me and administered anesthesia. Before my consciousness faded, I shed tears and managed to question her. Sarah Thompson, I poured my heart out to you. How could you do this to me? In a haze, the hesitation on Sarah Thompson's face lasted only a fleeting moment, then her expression hardened. I'm sorry, Jake Miller, this is the last time. My last thought before losing consciousness was that I would no longer love her. Sarah Thompson and I had been married for 7 years. I had once believed she truly loved me, otherwise, she wouldn't have stepped forward when everyone else called me a loser. But this was the outcome we ended up with. In a daze, I seemed to see my past self softly speaking to me. Don't ever let them go. The dream was chaotic and terrifying. When I woke up again, I could distinctly feel that my right lower leg had lost all sensation. Immediately, feelings of despair and collapse overwhelmed me, and I burst into tears. Sarah Thompson actually did it. She just destroyed my life like that. A person without a leg, let alone a racing driver, couldn't even be a normal person. Tears fell onto the bedsheet, and hatred surged within me. Later that night, after the anesthesia wore off, the phantom pain in my leg was the hardest to bear. It was almost breaking me. I was sweating profusely from the pain, gritting my teeth to endure it, and stared blankly and coldly at the wall in front of me. For a moment, I even wanted to end my life. Well, look who's awake. Just then, a familiar voice sounded. I vaguely lifted my eyes. Mark Davis pushed the door open and entered. He shook his head, feigning sympathy at my state, but his voice was dripping with schadenfreude. Jake Miller, look at the state you're in. Not being able to hold a woman's heart for 7 years is one thing, but now you're a complete waste. You lost to me in love, and it's the same in racing. You'll never win against me in this life. What did you say? I spoke with a hoarse voice. It took a while for my pain-numbed brain to process his words. The next moment, I was immediately furious. Get out. Get out. Never appear before me again. You bastard. I won't let you get away with this. I'm going to kill you. Get out. Get away. Mark Davis clearly relished my hysteria. He even shrugged. Look, Jake Miller, your wife would go this far for me. But you're a cripple now, so you probably can't even understand how I feel. Get out. I ripped the IV needle from the back of my hand, grabbed the medicine bottle, and hurled it. One bottle wasn't enough. I threw my pillow, blanket, and everything else I could get my hands on. But I had overestimated my physical condition after the surgery. Within moments, I collapsed onto the bed, breathless. The pain in my leg again rendered me speechless. Mark Davis arrogantly continued to mock me, but as his words spilled out, I gradually began to feel a growing sense of powerlessness and numbness. Yes, I had completely failed. What chance did I have to turn things around? In that moment, the breakdown that had pleased Mark Davis vanished, leaving only a cold numbness. Why aren't you talking? Jake Miller. Speak up. Weren't you the wildest before? The annual best racing driver, right? Why are you silent now? Mark Davis was stunned. My sudden apathy infuriated him, who was seeking a sense of superiority from me. Over the next 10 minutes or so, he repeatedly tried to provoke me. Why aren't you talking, you cripple? Didn't you just throw things at me? Who are you putting on this act for now? I weakly tossed a pillow at him, and bit out, my voice weak and pale, get out. As the flimsy pillow hit him, Mark Davis finally found his chance. The next moment, he cried out, feigning injury as he stumbled backward, speaking in disbelief. Jake Miller. How could you? I just came to see you. Just then, the regular clicking of high heels sounded from outside the door. After hearing his cry, the rhythm quickened, and then came the sound of Olivia Stone opening the door. Mark Davis. What happened? She looked at the mess on the floor, and immediately turned to glare at me fiercely. Sarah Thompson, who arrived later, also looked stunned as she entered the room. Mark. He actually hit you. Watching the two of them showering him with concern, I twitched my lips, and a bitter laugh escaped my lips. Jake Miller. Are you crazy? Apologize to Mark right now. Infuriated by my laughter, Sarah Thompson rushed forward and grabbed my arm. The next moment, she dragged me off the bed, disregarding my injured leg. You apologize to Mark. Kneel and apologize, or humiliating apology. Olivia Stone, after helping Mark Davis, then brought down her high heels directly onto the bleeding needle mark on the back of my hand, speaking concisely, apologize. I lay on the ground, ignoring the pain in my hand for now. I only felt that the thick bandage on my amputated leg, after such a rough handling, seemed to be seeping blood. I was deathly pale and barely conscious from the pain. Olivia Stone, seeing my silence, started cursing, grabbing my hair, and forcing my head down repeatedly. Can't you understand me? Apologize to my husband right now. They cruelly and humiliatingly made me apologize to Mark Davis. Only when I lay on the ground, my eyes half open and weak, barely clinging to life, did they relent. Maybe it was just a delusion, but for a moment, I thought I saw pity and hesitation in Sarah Thompson's eyes. But it didn't matter. What was done was done. Whatever my mistakes, I had received my punishment. Now, I just wanted to leave this hell. When I woke up again, I didn't see Sarah Thompson. The bleeding bandage on my leg and my hand had both been rebandaged, and the room had been tidied up. The sunlight from the window fell on my face. I lowered my eyes, feeling as if a lifetime had passed, and thought absurdly that the upscale private hospital was indeed efficient. At this moment, it was as if nothing had happened. I thought this was my chance to leave, but Sarah Thompson soon returned, bringing me something to eat. Awake. Have some food. Now, her expression softened, and she feigned regret. Tell me, why do you have to suffer so much just by being stubborn? As she spoke, she picked up a spoon to feed me, her tone earnest. If you just behave, I'll treat you well for the rest of your life. I turned my head away, almost gagging. Seeing her filled me with utter revulsion. Get out. Sarah Thompson was somewhat exasperated by my treatment. Jake Miller, I'm putting aside our differences to bring you food now. Can't you be less ungrateful? I closed my eyes. Once my emotions settled, I finally spoke, almost pleadingly. Sarah Thompson, I beg you. Please, I'm begging you. I'll even bless you and Mark Davis, okay? Or anyone you want, besides Mark Davis. Just don't bother me anymore. I was wrong to consider Mark Davis my rival in the past. I was overestimating myself. Please, let me go. No matter what, I had already received the punishment I deserved. My life is already ruined, now I just want them to leave me alone. Sarah Thompson was taken aback by my appearance. For a moment, She seemed not to recognize me. After a long pause, she shook her head. Jake Miller, your current state isn't just about making you apologize. More than that, it's what you owe Mark Davis. I owe him. What could I possibly owe him? I asked vaguely. Sarah Thompson frowned, and couldn't help but scoff that I truly did you have a short memory. She said that, when Mark Davis first started racing, I brought the whole racing team to ostracize and collide with him. If Mark Davis hadn't been so lucky, he would have died long ago. So you brought it on yourself. I don't know what you're pretending. I almost believed you just now. I was slightly stunned, then recalled those ancient history events, and a bitter smile formed on my face. I finally understood why these two women were so utterly devoted to Mark Davis. So that's what they thought had happened back then. There had been a collision at the time, but it wasn't as she described. From the very beginning, when he first joined the racing team, I had noticed that Mark Davis was unscrupulous, always trying to win races through dishonest means. But now, there was nothing to say. It was meaningless. I was already disabled. Seeing my silence, Sarah Thompson sneered, so Jake Miller, you have no right to complain. This is your retribution. I remained silent, and Sarah Thompson lost the desire to speak to me, turning to leave immediately. I stared blankly at her retreating back. After a long while, I buried my face in my hands, and silently sobbed. After that, my life was nothing but treatment and recovery. Different psychology doctors came to see me every day. Sarah Thompson, given my significant fan base, seemed to ensure I received the best medicine. I acted numb but cooperative. I simply didn't like to talk. Over half a month later, I finally managed to make them lower their guard. Enduring intense pain, I sat in a wheelchair and struggled to leave the hospital. When I looked back at the hospital entrance for the last time, my gaze was cold. Since you all want me gone, then I'll disappear forever. At that time, Sarah Thompson was being intimate with Mark Davis in a presidential suite at a high-end hotel. I've done so much for you. Why can't I be the one with you? She cupped Mark Davis' face, her eyes filled with deep affection. At least we're together now. Mark Davis said comfortingly. Just as the two were about to get more intimate, the romantic atmosphere was broken by a ringing phone. Sarah Thompson impatiently took out her phone, about to hang up, but her brow furrowed after seeing the caller ID. Hospital. What could the hospital possibly want? Jake Miller. At the thought of him, Sarah Thompson still answered, hello. This is bad, Miss Sarah. Mr. Jake Miller, he's gone. The doctor's frantic voice came through. Sarah Thompson's brow furrowed even deeper, and her heart sank. What do you mean? What do you mean he's gone? Where could a disabled man like him go? The doctor on the other end explained that he had disappeared during a nurse's shift change last night, and the next morning, the nurse discovered the lump under the blanket was just pillows. The person had vanished, with no trace on surveillance. Only a message was left behind. What did he say? A sudden premonition of dread struck Sarah Thompson. The doctor then played the message from the phone Jake Miller had left behind. Sarah Thompson, I'm leaving. Whatever my mistakes, I have already received the punishment I deserved. I hate all of you, and from now on, I only hope never to see any of you again. I truly regret knowing you. That year, when I was 5. I shouldn't have held that umbrella for you. These few short sentences, coming through the receiver, each word dripped with hatred and despair. After the doctor hung up, Sarah Thompson took a sharp breath, unable to recover for a long time. When Mark Davis and Sarah Thompson heard this, they immediately lost all interest, but they still seemed to disbelieve it. What kind of tantrum is he throwing? Haven't I given him the best treatment available, both domestically and internationally, during this time? How far can a cripple go? It won't be long before the pain, without special medication, becomes unbearable, and he'll come back on his own. Sarah Thompson suppressed the unease in her heart and smugly reasoned. She just felt that Jake Miller was merely testing if she truly cared about him, which was utterly childish. Shall we continue? She said this, but refused when Mark Davis asked to continue their intimacy. Afterward, she seemed distracted. She immediately got dressed and rushed towards the hospital, hastily saying she needed to check the surveillance footage. Sarah Thompson. Mark Davis looked at Sarah Thompson's slightly flustered retreating back, asking confusedly. 2 days passed, and there was no news of Jake Miller. Sarah Thompson's face grew more impatient, but she herself didn't realize a hint of anxiety had crept into her heart. He wouldn't commit suicide, would he? In this situation, she couldn't call the police. If he wasn't dead and revealed everything, it would be detrimental to everyone. Thinking of this, she told the doctor to call her the moment he returned, stating that she needed to teach Jake Miller a lesson, so he wouldn't dare run away again. Over the next few days, Mark Davis visited several times and noticed Sarah Thompson was acting strangely. He wanted to persuade her, but Sarah Thompson didn't realize the anxiety in her heart, and told Mark Davis not to worry. "Don't worry, I'll definitely find him and bring him back. And when I do, I won't let him off easy." But as time passed, even the doctors began advising Sarah Thompson not to wait any longer. Sarah Thompson pulled several all-nighters at the hospital, her face haggard. With the doctor's prompting, she finally believed Jake Miller wouldn't return. "Good riddance." She said this, as if giving up entirely, and as if trying to cut ties. Told the doctor to throw away everything Jake Miller would need for treatment. Afterward, she returned home, a place she hadn't been in a long time, and began smashing everything that reminded her of Jake Miller. "Bastard. You big liar. No one will even bother to collect your body, wherever you die." Sarah Thompson smashed the furniture in her home, cursing Jake Miller for daring to leave her, and raging that he should never come back if he truly had the guts. "Who do you think you are? Do you really think you're all that?" With a bang, she smashed the glass coffee table with a chair leg. The glass shattered into pieces, cutting her lower leg. She cried out in pain, crouching down and frowning. Sarah Thompson looked at the wound on her leg and suddenly thought, if just a cut hurt this much, then what about an amputation? Would losing an entire lower leg be even more painful? She didn't have time to think deeply. She didn't even know why she was so anxious, she just kept finding things to do to distract herself. She continued, almost frantically, using the broken chair leg to clear out Jake Miller's belongings. But when she saw a certain item, she stopped. On the table were her and Jake Miller's wedding rings. Before Jake Miller's race, he had specifically taken off his wedding ring, smiling and telling her that the race was too intense, and he didn't want anything to happen to stain the ring. "Don't want the wedding ring to get dirty." Sarah Thompson stood amidst the ruins of her home, vaguely recalling what she had said that day. Yes, she had smiled and taken off her own wedding ring, placing it there. Even if she didn't genuinely wish him to win the championship, she still replied, "Then you can put it back on when you win the championship." But at the end of this road, there were no flowers or applause, no honor, and certainly no wedding ring to put back on. Nothing was the same anymore. Sarah Thompson was silent for a long moment. She put the wedding rings aside, and began to clean up in silence. But the more she cleaned, the more memories of their past flooded her mind. She suddenly wanted to question herself, was there truly no sincerity at all when she got married? If not, then what was this feeling she had now? Almost every item she picked up reminded her of where she and Jake Miller had been, or when they had bought it together. Were these 7 years truly meaningless to her? In a daze, she went to Jake Miller's study, where his trophy and other racing-related items were kept. She had never noticed before how much Jake Miller cherished what he loved. Even his small race car model was spotless. He used to be a golden boy, a rising star in the racing team. Sarah Thompson bit her lip, stubbornly refused to let her tears fall, and continued cleaning. Until she found a separately stored USB drive in a drawer. It was labeled, August 2013 accident record. Sarah Thompson was stunned. She immediately recalled that this was the video of the accident she had claimed almost killed Mark Davis. The USB drive was old, and the footage was blurry, but it was clear that Mark Davis had intentionally crashed into Jake Miller, though he hadn't succeeded. Sarah Thompson covered her mouth, her eyes wide. The next moment, tears slid down her face. From the very beginning, she had been prejudiced. She had believed Mark Davis' one-sided accusation. And as the video neared its end, Jake Miller still thought Mark Davis had crashed due to an operational error, and even tried to comfort him. Chen Song outwardly agreed, calling him Brother Jake, but his tone seemed impatient and resentful, no matter how you looked or listened to it. Sarah Thompson couldn't believe she had been deceived by Mark Davis for so many years without realizing it. The next moment, she pulled out her phone, frantically wanting to call Jake Miller to clarify everything, but found she was blocked. All her messages showed red dots, and she collapsed onto the floor. She had made a terrible mistake. Unable to reach Jake Miller, she called Mark Davis and urged him to come quickly. "What's wrong, Sarah? Why did you make me rush over?" As soon as Mark Davis entered, Sarah Thompson slapped him. "You hit me." Mark Davis had never been treated this way by Sarah Thompson, and was momentarily stunned. "Mark Davis. What was the truth about that accident?" Sarah Thompson questioned him, tears streaming down her face. Mark Davis was startled. He looked sideways and saw the computer screen playing the video of that accident. His heart sank slightly. Seeing that he couldn't hide it, he remained silent for a long moment under Sarah Thompson's gaze, then finally spoke, sounding pitiful. I wanted you to pity me, to give me a chance, so I was desperate. I never thought it would cause such a huge misunderstanding." These words, however, only made Sarah Thompson angrier. Trembling, She pointed at the computer. It took her a long moment to find her voice. You thought it was just a misunderstanding. We caused Jake Miller such immense harm. At this moment, Sarah Thompson's guilt towards Jake Miller now outweighed her feelings for Mark Davis. She rushed forward and started hitting Mark Davis repeatedly. You bastard. You animal. I won't let you get away with this. Mark Davis initially let her, but after a few times, he lost his temper. He shoved her to the ground and roared. We caused Jake Miller so much harm. Sarah Thompson, what are you doing acting like the good guy now? You've always been the one who fucked him over the most. I didn't amputate his leg. You personally destroyed him. After yelling this, Mark Davis turned and left immediately. Sarah Thompson sat stunned on the ground for a long moment, then finally burst into tears, slowly hugging herself helplessly, muttering apologies to Jake Miller. She couldn't imagine how a disabled Jake Miller could possibly live. He hadn't even taken his special medication when he left. How did he endure the phantom pain every night? At this point, she finally saw her true feelings and was determined to find and compensate Jake Miller, even just a little. After that, Sarah Thompson searched in many places. From where they had honeymooned to the cities Jake Miller had once said he liked. All her efforts were to no avail. Sarah Thompson carried Jake Miller's photo, asking people repeatedly. Everyone said they hadn't seen a disabled person like him. She looked at the vibrant Jake Miller in the photos, then thought of him on the hospital bed, ravaged alternately by the accident and the amputation. She felt it was normal not to recognize him. She herself barely could. After a day of fruitless searching, Sarah Thompson sat on a roadside bench. She looked up and saw Mark Davis and Olivia Stone intimately posing for a magazine cover on a large screen. She suddenly wanted to laugh. She truly didn't know what she had been sacrificing all these years. Happiness was right in her grasp. She could have had a champion husband and spent her life with him. Instead, she was Mark Davis' mistress, unable to even be seen openly. Sarah Thompson stood on the street of a strange city, tears streaming down her face. Passers-by cast glances at her, but she didn't care. Guilt and hatred were practically drowning her. She certainly deserved to die and needed to atone, but was she the only one who needed to atone? As Sarah Thompson thought this, the more she felt she owed Jake Miller. She wiped away her tears, took out her phone, bought a return ticket, and her expression gradually hardened. She had to make it up to Jake Miller. I hadn't expected to see Sarah Thompson again. Jake Miller, I finally found you. When she found me, her face was haggard, and she had lost a lot of weight. Her face lit up with surprise for a moment when she saw me standing, but then her expression fell again as she realized it was a prosthetic. She rushed forward a few steps, her face filled with guilt. I'm so sorry. It's all my fault. I've been looking for you for a very long time. I went to many places. No need to say any of that. I'm not interested. I replied coldly. I immediately turned to leave, but Sarah Thompson grabbed my arm. Jake Miller. Just consider that I've been looking for you for over half a year. Please, just let me say a few more words. I'm begging you. Let go, Sarah Thompson. I don't want to listen, and I don't want to see you. I frowned, and a flash of disgust crossed my face. During this time, I had started a new life and a new job, gradually forgotten about going back, and even my psychological therapy had been very effective. So I didn't want to see any of them again. Jake. Can you stop being so stubborn? Come back with me. I really miss you. Sarah Thompson spoke, tears streaming down her face, choking back tears several times, unable to speak. But I wanted nothing more than to avoid her. Get out. Don't call me that. Don't make me say worse things. The moment I saw her, I knew she must have used some shady methods to find me, otherwise, it would have been impossible. Sarah Thompson acted as if she hadn't heard me, and continued to pour out her recent suffering. I beg you, I'm genuinely going crazy from guilt. Please, just give me one chance. Let me make it up to you. I'll treat you well for the rest of my life. Hearing this, I pointed at my prosthetic leg, and scoffed at myself. Compensate me. Sarah Thompson, can you give me back a leg, or compensate me for my future in professional racing? Who cares about your whole life? Never come looking for me again. Sarah Thompson had ruined my entire life. I only hope never to see her again. Jake Miller. Jake Miller. Sarah Thompson burst into tears behind me, then yelled, "Did you never love me during those 7 years?" My steps faltered. When I spoke again, my voice was bitter. Sarah Thompson, I truly loved you once, but now, I just want to be strangers. I turned and walked away. Sarah Thompson cried out behind me, but she didn't chase after me. Jake Miller. You wait. I'll get you some answers about this. I'll make it up to you. I didn't pay it any mind and didn't utter a word. Afterward, I spent a relatively peaceful period. I thought that since Sarah Thompson had found me through shady methods, she might come to my home and harass me, but to my surprise, she didn't. A few days later, news spread online that someone was going to challenge the racing record again. I wasn't interested. Racing, or professional records, for that matter, had nothing to do with me anymore. But that evening, an unknown number called my phone. Sarah Thompson's voice on the other end of the line was chilling, speaking with a hint of obsession. "Jake Miller, turn on the TV now. I have a surprise for you." I didn't know what was going on with her tone, but something compelled me to watch. On the TV screen, Mark Davis' car was speeding, only a few seconds away from surpassing the record he set last year. That's when it happened. Mark Davis' racing car's brakes failed on a turn, and it plummeted down the cliff. I widened my eyes, watching the frantic announcer report an accident on the track, and then saw fire trucks and paramedics rushing to the scene. Judging by the wrecked state of the car's front, and the extent of the engine fire, Mark Davis was likely in a bad way. "Jake Miller, are you watching? Well, are you feeling a little happier?" I did it. The call was still connected. Sarah Thompson's voice was sweet and intimate, but I found it chilling. "Mark Davis won't be able to compete anymore. Jake Miller, I'm sorry that you can't race, but he can't either now. He should atone for you." "Are you crazy? This is murder. Why do you think this is for me?" I was shocked by her ruthlessness, but I had no intention of forgiving her, because Mark Davis, no matter what, had nothing to do with me anymore. Sarah Thompson on the other end of the line was startled, then asked with obsession, "Is it because his atonement isn't enough? Jake Miller, just you wait. I'll keep going. I'll keep going. Until you forgive me." Before I could speak, she hung up. Fearing she might do something else, I immediately dialed the emergency number. Unfortunately, I was too late. When the police caught Sarah Thompson, she was already holding Olivia Stone hostage with a small knife. Surrounded by the police, she let out a hoarse scream. "I want to see Jake Miller. Bring Jake Miller here to see me." The police had no choice but to quickly call me to the scene. When I arrived, Olivia Stone's face was streaked with tears. She had long been terrified, not knowing what to do. She was completely distraught and trembling incessantly. "Help. Jake Miller. Help. I know I was wrong. Please save me." The moment Sarah Thompson saw me, she laughed maniacally. "Jake Miller. You're finally here. Are you satisfied now? Have I atoned? Jake Miller. I love you. Why won't you give me a chance? If you just come back to me, I'll let this bitch go." I frowned, looking at her maniacal state. "Sarah Thompson. Stop it. Don't go any further. Surrender." Not getting the answer she wanted, she wildly asked why I still wouldn't forgive her. The knife tip scraped against Olivia Stone's neck several times, drawing blood and eliciting screams. Then she muttered to herself, deliriously, Maybe I haven't been punished enough. Sarah Thompson." I had a bad feeling and cried out, but it was still too late. She plunged the knife into Olivia Stone's neck, then took a few steps back, ready to end her own life, apologizing as she did it. The police's action was a second too late. Sarah Thompson finally covered her neck and collapsed, utterly silent. Die with unfulfilled regret. Watching the paramedics rush over, I trembled all over and closed my eyes. Both individuals ultimately died after resuscitation efforts failed. Afterward was a long phase of investigation and evidence collection. After I had provided all the evidence I could, a police officer saw me off, asking me about my future plans. She said that now the truth was revealed. My fans and racing team all hoped I would return. I shook my head slightly and left the police station directly. Later, through physical therapy, I returned to the racing scene as a coach. Although I couldn't return to my previous condition, I could still start a new life. From then on, all matters, the dust settled.